Thanks for being here. I'm excited to start this conversation just because I think we chatted earlier, and there's just a wealth of really amazing stuff that you've been up to that I think the audience will be really interested. But before we kind of get into that stuff, why don't you tell the audience a bit about your background from CPG to now boots and shoes?
Yeah, I started in advertising right out of college. I worked at Starcom for 5 years doing media planning. I started with General Motors and then moved to Kraft Foods was an account that I had, and I found myself at the time just really intrigued by my clients and what they were doing all day, and sort of seeing that media was a part of it, but it wasn't sort of the entire picture. So while I was in Chicago, I went back to business school at Northwestern part-time. So I was walking from the Leo Burnett building to the downtown campus at Northwestern for 2.5 years. And then once I got done with school, I wanted to go do more like brand management and marketing, and just really understand the broader business context of marketing. So I loved my time in CPG and the media side of things. So I joined Heinz and spent some time there working in frozen meals. I spent some time with Conagra Foods and Chef Boyardee particularly. The majority of my time in the CPG world, I was at Kellogg's for 5 or 6 years, which was a blast, working across Pop-Tarts and Special K, and launching some new brands, and doing some things like Olympics partnerships that were just a great opportunity. In between my time at Kellogg's, I left for a couple of years and worked with Meijer, which is a Midwestern super center, and oversaw private label, which was an eye opener as well from a CPG standpoint. It was blasphemy leaving a branded marketing company or a branded company to go manage private label. But the best part of that experience is because I managed the private label portfolio across the grocery, I sat in on every brand vendor meeting. So I got to see every category, every CPG brand, sort of how they kind of pitch themselves, at least out to retail. And then I landed at Wolverine. I just got to a point where I wanted to try something outside of food. I'd been in sort of the food space for most of my career. So I decided to see how applicable cereal marketing was for shoes. So I've been here for almost 5 years, 4.5 years.
And I think that's great. And I think what would be most interesting to kind of segue into is what has been applicable from your lengthy career in food to your days now at Wolverine. You had mentioned that there are a lot of similarities that.
Yeah. I mean, I think everything, like one thing I grew to really love about CPG marketing was just that when somebody's rolling through a grocery store, like they have seconds to make purchase decisions, and they're usually not even super thoughtful decisions, which is the power of building a brand and marketing, is like that emotional connection that we always talk about in marketing, is that you really had to build that because there wasn't time to be rational about those choices. Otherwise you'd spend hours in a grocery store. So I think when I came into the footwear business, it's higher price points. Our average selling price is a little over $100 in retail and $130 online. So I was thinking there's going to be some different dynamics. Like you spend a little more time thinking about your purchase decision and whatnot, but we've done a lot of shop alongs over the years I've been here, and a lot of ethnographies. And, it might be a dynamic specifically because we're primarily a men's brand, but men that we shop along with spend no more than 10 minutes looking for a pair of shoes. They find a few things they like, they try them on quickly, and they're out. They go in to buy, don't necessarily go into shop. So I just started to realize over time here that emotional connection is just as important. The price points are higher, but it's still not as rational as you might think it is. And they're not spending as much time researching those decisions as I think maybe some folks in the industry might believe is happening. So I found that just the notion of like getting people just emotionally attached to your brand and helping them to make decisions quickly is just as applicable in this industry as it was in the food industry. I will say that the one thing I've really loved about this industry though is in the food world, sometimes I'll be super cynical because I love Frosted Flakes still, but at the end of the day, the tangible product is cornflakes coated with sugar. And so the brand Tony the Tiger and the whole brand built around Frosted Flakes is bigger in a lot of ways than the product itself, which makes marketing a lot of fun. But what I love about the footwear industry is there are so many details and a crazy amount of craftsmanship that goes into the products that we make. And so I just saw it as a great opportunity because the product in this situation seems to be bigger in a lot of cases than the brand. And the brand isn't sort of fully getting the credit for the product that's behind it in a lot of situations. So it's just an interesting dynamic shift, I think, of like, how do I build this brand up to represent all of the detail and craftsmanship and thought that goes into that product is a fun challenge.
And I think you had mentioned in our conversation, you know, talking a little bit less about the form and function of the product itself, and going more and aligning more around purpose-driven marketing, and telling the story behind the brand to really connect with your consumer. So can you just tell us about the last your last 4 to 5 years there, and how purpose-driven marketing has been kind of a really key component in supporting your consumer base and new customers?
Yeah, I mean, so the core of our business, almost all of our business at this point, is work boots, safety toe work boots for people that work in the trades, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, truck drivers. It runs the gamut. And I know, Valerie, you and I spoke, and your dad's an electrician, so that was a fun connection to make instantly. But I will say too, on top of that, the brand has shown some impressive stretch potential. So as an example, our lowest price product, one of our mainstream work boots that's available pretty much everywhere, retails for around $89. But we also have a small lineup called Wolverine 1000 Mile. And they're sort of archival patterns of older work boots, but they're handmade in the US with what's called Horween leather, which is a 4th generation leather tannery in Chicago. And those retail from anywhere from $400 to $800. So that was super impressive to me, of a brand that can go from an $85 retail to a $700 retail, and have the credibility to do that. So the stretch is impressive. But what's really helped us drive our point of difference in the marketplace, and we're continuing to try to figure out, is just our authenticity in the marketplace. We've been around more than 135 years, and we've been around serving people in the trades industry with work boots. So we've been really trying hard to stretch the brand, but also stay really true to the core of the brand, which is work boots and skilled tradespeople as our core consumer base. But we're not a huge brand. We don't have massive media budgets. So we've found that we need to earn our way into conversations. So I've become like a big fan of brand purpose, and earned media is how we can get reach and drive awareness with this brand. And one of the interesting dynamics about earned media is, if you're a big enough brand and you can sort of pay your way into it, you can create conversations, right? We're not a brand that can necessarily create conversations with the resources we have, but one conversation in sort of society that's been going on for a few years is this whole notion of a skills gap. There's more people retiring from the skilled trades than there are young people coming into the trades. And that's important for a couple of reasons. Like when you even think about the recent infrastructure bill that was passed, like you need people to do these things. But as a society, for whatever reason, probably the last generation or two, there's been a general societal trend of telling people that they need to go to college. They need to go to a 4-year college to be successful in life. So, Valerie, you and I talked about this before, but like, while we enjoy like getting out of bed in the morning to our 70-degree house, whether it's winter or summer, and we can flick a switch and turn on the bathroom light and set the water for the exact temperature we like, and have, the coffee pot turn on at a certain time, and have smooth roads driving to work. Like all those conveniences are because there are tradespeople that know how to do those things. So it's a little bit ironic that, from a society in general standpoint, we've tended to kind of try to drive our kids to go to college and do jobs like you and I sitting in front of computer screens, when in reality, all the conveniences we enjoy in life are made possible by skilled tradespeople. So it's become a real sort of cultural conversation on this dynamic of like the skills gap, and the price of houses is shooting up because there's not enough houses and there's not enough people that know how to build those houses. So we've really just tried to make it our purpose to just celebrate and recognize the skilled tradespeople in the country, but in a way that everybody can relate to. I mean, we can all relate to like the fact that we flick our switch and most of us have no idea how it works behind the wall. So we want to celebrate and recognize those people, but we also want to do that to inspire and support the next generation of skilled tradespeople, because there's not enough people going into those jobs. A lot of agencies are estimating 3 to 5 million unfilled trade jobs over the next 3 years. And what I love about our focus on this purpose is that it's in our financial best interest as well as society's best interest to get more people into the trades. 3 to 5 million unfilled jobs in the trades is 3 to 5 million unsold products every year for us. So to kind of get behind a purpose that is, I think, good for society, but also is a key driver of our business, is just a connection that keeps us honest and keeps us kind of true to what it is we say we want to accomplish.
I mean, it's so, pertinent today, like, the unemployment numbers are like pretty staggering. There's like I think the most recent one I saw was 8.8 million people unemployed, but 10 million, jobs that are available in the US. And so it's just to think of this imbalance of people that are unemployed versus jobs, like clearly the skills alignment there is a huge issue.
Right. And as we've talked to so many people, because, these are our core consumer base. So we talk to a lot of folks, like they're small business owners, like an electrician in a lot of cases, or a plumber. A lot of times they're a single person operation. They own their own business. They set their own hours. And it's amazing how many of them that we talk to that are earning healthy 6-figure incomes. They're earning more than their neighbors, who have a bachelor's degree in whatever they studied. So to think that society has kind of created this perception that you can't be successful, you can't make an income in a blue collar career path is just it's crazy. We all rely on people in those jobs so much as well.
Yeah, I know. I think about my father. He had 4 daughters. I mean, like, and put them all through college, off of his electrician work, and he was his own business owner. And honestly, I'm just so proud of what he was capable of achieving with that. So I completely agree with you. And I think also to the idea that like you have to go to college, like sometimes school isn't for you. So the idea of doing a trade school, again, I think are conversations that are real, and people are really trying to figure that out now. I feel like things are changing. I don't know if it's been due to COVID or people just reevaluating what their life is going to be like, or what they want to, how they want to live it. I think it's a really amazing story to be telling.
And we talk to people all the time. You're right about the school thing of, I mean, if you're in high school and you're getting C's and struggling to get through school, it's seen as like you're not doing something right. But there's a lot of folks that go into the trades too. And I mean, that's just not the way they learn. They learn hands-on. They're not motivated by sitting in a classroom. They're motivated by making things and stepping back and looking at their work at the end of the day. So you find that it's a lot of folks are, just as whip smart as anyone that's getting an A in high school. It's just they like different things and they spend their energy on doing things versus a more traditional path.
Yeah, totally. I want to focus on 3, recent purpose-driven initiatives that we discussed, because I just think they're super cool. And I think it's so important for marketers out there and clients and creatives who might be watching. Because again, I think we talked about like brand purpose is certainly buzzy. And you can tell the ones that are completely contrived and therefore not necessarily connecting with consumers, versus those that just really align perfectly to the product and the goals. So, the first one that I really appreciated was the micro alignment. So I don't know if you want to explain how that started and where it kind of evolved into.
Yeah. So as we started talking about those 2 things that I mentioned, like how do we celebrate and recognize the blue collar workforce today, and how do we inspire like sort of and support the next generation of skilled tradespeople? We looked at that, and Q video, this is well done. It was a little bit of background. We looked at that and we said, well, let's try to see if like we can find some partners who have aligned values, and we can tell a story. We can put our brand out there in a way, but we can also do some good in the world. So Mike Rowe is the preeminent voice on the skilled trades. He hosted a show on Discovery Network called Dirty Jobs a while ago. It's actually coming back, and he came out of that experience and what I've learned from him in a couple of conversations of just realizing that these people that do these dirty jobs that we think they might not want to be doing actually have a huge sense of purpose in what they do. They make a great living, and he realized like we need more people like them. So he started his own scholarship foundation. We reached out to him and said, how can we become a part of the scholarship foundation? And we also wanted to keep the brand connected to it as well. And there were 2 interesting things. One, we found out he wears our Wolverine 1,000-mile boots authentically. So there was a really nice authentic connection. The values were squarely aligned in sort of driving that next generation of skilled tradespeople. And so we came to him and said, what if we make sort of a custom version of our 1,000-mile boot, and we contribute 100% of the revenue that we generate from that initiative to your scholarship foundation? And I remember him being taken aback for a while, or his foundation as well, and said, wait, so if the boot sells for $360, you cut a check to us for $360. And we said, that's exactly it. Like, we don't make any money off of it, but obviously working with you with these aligned values is a great way to do it. So he said, great, I'll do it. And it was a very sort of informal partnership at the time. But it was coming up during Labor Day. He was doing a 10th anniversary of his Micro Work Scholarship Foundation. So he had some interviews booked to talk about his own foundation. And this is a clip of just one of the things he did on Fox and Friends. So whatever your political biases are about Fox, the one thing to know is that Fox and Friends is the #1 rated cable news network on TV. And this was back in 2018, just before Labor Day. So you can see kind of quick clip of what happened on this interview.
You know, Mike, as people look toward the holiday weekend, something they could do is they could buy a pair of boots. And not just any boots, but a pair of Wolverine boots, because they are offering a limited edition of 1,000-miler boots, like the one right there that you've worn on every one of your shows, and all the proceeds go to your foundation.
It's it. I got it right here.
That's it.
I've been wearing these things.
We need some of those.
I've been wearing these boots for 10 years. Thank you for bringing it up. It's the all-time shameless plug ever. But every year on Labor Day, I try and do something with a company that's like-minded. And Wolverine knows I wear their shoes, so they said, we'll do one just for MicroWorks.
Right.
All the proceeds go to your foundation.
Fantastic.
So I said, awesome. They set aside 150 pairs. Thanks for bringing it up.
I love it.
And I will say, like, it seems so obvious now several years down the road, but when we, like, as a marketing organization, we're telling sort of our e-com and product and leadership teams, they said, so how much money did we make off that boot? And we said, zero. We gave it all away. And like, to get their head around that, they just couldn't understand why we would try to sell something when we give the money back. But I think folks are now starting to see over the last few years, it's building relationships. We're making an authentic impact in the world. But we're obviously building our brand as a result too. We're here to have a business as well. And if we don't have a business, we can't tell these stories and we can't do sort of contribute to society. So it's building our brand, but it wasn't, I guess, obvious at the surface when we first started these efforts.
And it's certainly building upon that earned media that you talk about how important it is. So that's terrific. And so the other one was, surprisingly, your connection through Micro to a very important music group. So do you want to chat about Metallica?
Yeah, so it was from the story we were told by Mike Rowe's team. He had run into, I believe, I might have the story wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's right. He ran into James Hetfield out in California. They both live in Northern California. He called him Lars Ulrich. James said, I'm not Lars Ulrich. I'm the lead singer of the band. And so they had a conversation, and Metallica has a nonprofit foundation. I've learned so much about Metallica over the last few years. They've been amazing, but they have a nonprofit foundation called All Within My Hands. And each of the band members has sort of their own particular initiative within that nonprofit. And James Hetfield is kind of known for some of the work he does, whether it's welding and woodworking at home. So he actually started an initiative that they call Metallica Scholars. So where Mike Rowe has a scholarship foundation to award individual scholarships, Metallica Scholars awards individual grants to community colleges around the country as a workforce initiative. So we were introduced to them by Mike Rowe and MicroWorks. And so we reached out with a similar model and we said, hey, what if we did some limited edition Metallica Scholars boots, and 100% of the revenue went back to the Metallica Scholars Foundation. And now this is where sort of that flywheel started to spin too, of, from what I understand, they immediately flipped back and asked Mike Rowe, like, what do you know about Wolverine? Would you work with them? Whatever else. And I think because of our level of authenticity and commitment to what we were doing with MicroWorks, I think they were very excited about working with us. So we did a couple of limited edition boots for the Metallica Scholars program last year. We visited a variety of the community colleges that they were supporting. But as you might imagine too, some of what Metallica Scholars is doing also just bleeds over into like the interest level that Metallica fans have in the band as well. So again, we were able to make a really solid impact in this notion of skilled trades training and workforce initiatives, but we were able to do it in a way that I think was unexpected enough because it was in conjunction with this heavy metal band's nonprofit foundation. That we were able to, I think, expose more and more people to this story of like, did you know the skilled trades, really viable career path? You should encourage your sons and daughters and brothers and sisters. And so this is a little bit of a highlight reel of kind of how that effort went.
Hey Metallica Scholars, Lars Ulrich hitting you here from HQ. Last year we decided to partner with 10 schools and create the Metallica Scholars Initiative. And you all impressed us with the way you kicked ass.
And now for today's One Good Thing. Someone or something makes West Michigan a good place to live. Really great college program around a lot of the nation is getting even better thanks to a local company. Wolverine Worldwide is getting involved with the Metallica Scholars program currently in place at Grand Rapids Community College. The program provides training for community college students in cities where that legendary band is performed. Now, Rockford-based Wolverine is helping fund a $100,000 grant, which each participating college will get. And they're providing every student in the program a new pair of boots and a set of clothes to help get them started in their careers. That is coming through their Project Bootstrap program.
So today we're so excited to announce our second year as a Metallica Scholars School.
It does feel a little normal today.
We got to have a little bit of a day of hope today.
So today we were able to meet all of the Metallica Scholars students, hook them up with some Wolverine swag, as well as fit them for their first pair of Wolverine work boots.
Today we've been able to meet some of the students that are benefiting from that combined $100,000 in donations.
We feel so lucky as Wolverine to be supporting WSU Tech.
Keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
Terrific. I mean, in the note there, like 1 billion media impressions. I mean, such an absolute success.
Well, and what it opened my eyes to too is like, we're not a brand that can afford to work with Metallica. Like there's just no way. If we just wanted to come to them and say, hey, we've got this commercial launch, we want to do this special drop and we're going to do all this advertising. Like we don't have the budgets for that. But when we approached their foundation, there was no guarantee that the band themselves would get involved, but they did. But when we approached them with more of a purpose-driven kind of opportunity and we saw that we had values aligned, like it just has opened up doors for this brand that wouldn't be open otherwise because we just couldn't afford to play in some of these spaces.
With each of these campaigns, like how are you measuring like success? Obviously, the numbers and the donations and all of that is just success in and of itself. But from kind of a financials reporting back, like how do you measure the success?
Yeah, we have twice a year brand health trackers that we run. So we're doing a lot of this to really understand, are we making an impact on perceptions in the trades, but also perceptions of the brand as sort of a leader in that conversation. So we measure what are probably more upper funnel sort of brand health metrics. The reach is a big piece of it, to understand like awareness and reach of the brand. But I think also the beauty of earned media to me is, in a TV campaign, the reach is what you pay for. In an earned media campaign, the reach is sort of an indicator of how important or how real or authentic your story is. So it kind of gives us an indication of reach from an awareness standpoint, but reach from an impact standpoint as well. And then we're working harder and harder year over year to tie it directly back to the brand and sales, which is obviously important for the overall business and ensuring that we can continue to do efforts like this moving forward. But the collaborations that with themselves, the most direct impacts, I would say, is website traffic, and then just really looking to do something that drives some immediate demand of those limited drops. So it's a triangulation of business results, brand health impact, but then also just as big as what we keep in the conversation is like, are we actually making an impact with what we're trying to do, which is another reason why we focus so much on earned media, because it would just seem so disingenuous to say we contributed $150,000 in Metallica Scholars and we're going to spend $1 million telling everybody about it. And that's one thing where we try not to do that. Like you won't see a media budget that is anywhere near the contributions that we're making, because then that's where it feels like a slippery slope of lip service more than an impact.
That is very true. So the other part to this, I'm going to bounce around a little bit, talking about e-com, obviously COVID has impacted, certain retailers in different ways. How have you seen the in-store versus e-com experience shift? Has it become more digital? Is it sort of kind of keeping consistent with what it has been historically? Can you kind of elaborate on what you've seen going on?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting with our customer base, because we did see a pretty big spike on our own .com sales last year. But in a lot of situations, that was not by choice. It's because stores were closed, right? And I think everybody saw that spike. But when you think about a blue collar workforce, I think there was this stereotype and myth of like, oh, they don't buy online. It's like they actually do buy online. But the reality is a lot of people, when they're in the market for work boots, they need them in the moment. Like they need them to show up to work in the morning. So if they get to a point where they need something, brick and mortar is really, really important. So we saw a spike last year. We're working really hard to sort of maintain that customer base, but we also have just a retail network of key partners that they stayed open. Many of them stayed open during the pandemic because these frontline workers were considered essential workers. And as a result, the stores were considered essential businesses to be operating. So with a few exceptions, most of our key retailers were able to get through the last year and a half and continue to, this was a category that was sort of a highlight for them, because these were people that came in and needed what they needed, regardless what was going on in the world. Whereas you think about my kids in sports, like a lot of their sports were canceled. So I didn't walk into a retailer and need a new pair of cleats or a new pair of shoes for my kids. But these folks that are working the trades, like they're burning through these work boots and they needed more. So a lot of our key retailers were able to do pretty well as well.
And speaking to essential workers, you had mentioned some grassroots social media efforts you had put a lot against that. So do you want to share that?
Yeah, we had a program that we called, it was very grassroots and pretty small scale, but it was impactful for us. We called it Wolverine for Workers. And it was really early on when the shutdown was happening, kind of based off of the insight of, we saw a lot of recognition and support for doctors and nurses and medical staff, which there absolutely should be. But then we also looked at it and said, wait, like who's keeping the lights on in the hospitals, and who's keeping the power going for the ventilators? Like there's a whole lot of people behind the scenes that are also putting themselves out there and not just sitting at home like I was in front of my Zoom screens, that are, HVAC technicians and electricians and people that are, continuing the transportation. And I think it did pick up over time, even the truck drivers and the delivery services started to become really recognized. So we just put out in social media in a really organic fashion and asked people to nominate somebody that they knew that was still out working, every single day. And then we sort of celebrated those folks by heroing them on our website and social media. We sent them all a pair of Wolverine work boots as a thank you for what they did. And it was some of our most highly engaged social media during the course of the year. We gained more followers during these small time periods than we typically do. And it was also really eye-opening of just how many people know someone that works in the trades, even though they may not. They have an aunt, an uncle, a brother, sister, dad, mom that works in the trades. So you could really see how relevant the notion of tradespeople, and to see the sort of an elevated level of appreciation was really encouraging to see, just in terms of the relevance of that message out to a broader audience.
That's terrific. We do have a question. I think I forgot in the beginning to say to everyone, if you do have any questions for Andy, please send them our way. One that I think is interesting, because you've talked a lot about sort of these grassroots efforts and sort of authentic, purpose-driven campaigns that you've worked on. But Dave is asking here, taking a look at your agency ecosystem, and he named a few. How does Wolverine manage them all?
We work primarily with Edelman, which is a PR agency. We have some creative help from production studios and things around the country like that. But we kind of made a concerted effort a few years back when we looked at how much we invested in media versus how much we thought we could do with more of an earned approach, and decided that our lead agency really should be a PR earned media driven agency. And I will say too, because there's always the temptation as a marketer to have lots of little specialty agencies. And again, we're just not a brand big enough to really house that. And with the scale of our brand within the organization, I mean, Edelman is a large global PR agency. And so there was this notion of like, how are you working with an agency that size with a brand this size? But it was because of the focus. I mean, we kind of made the decision that we want to focus on driving earned media, earned storytelling, and really kind of carve out a unique path in this place. So it made a lot of sense for us to partner with a PR agency, and they're pretty full service for us, even beyond the earned stuff that we do. So it's been a good partnership.
Terrific. Dave says thank you. So, I also I didn't actually mention on our call, I am a big bourbon fan. I'm taking a bit of a break, but there was an alignment that you made that with Old Rip Van Winkle, which obviously, for those who know, is certainly a special distillery. So would love to, we do have a video for that one as well. But if you want to give a brief overview of this alignment and why it aligned well with your consumer base. Because like I think about it now, like between the Metallica Foundation and Michael Rowe, like there's that, starting with the newer consumer base that you're trying to get into the workforce. And with this one, it was a bit of a different audience alignment, or I don't know, you can speak to this, but I'm just kind of figuring this out now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think like Mike Rowe, he's got a relatively broad audience, but he's got a very devout following of, like a blue collar kind of following, which is great. Metallica sort of opened our eyes to, we can bring sort of the idea of the trades beyond the core audience where, you're preaching to the proverbial choir. And Metallica kind of showed us that there are partners out there that may have aligned values, and it may not seem obvious, and we can get to new people with this messaging. And we did see from a product overlap, our more premium 1,000-mile line, there's a high overlap between bourbon and American-made boots, for whatever reason, just the craftsmanship and the legacy, I think. So we reached out to Old Rip Van Winkle Distilleries, and it's two guys. It's a dad and a son kind of managing this business now. It's Julian Van Winkle and Preston Van Winkle. And we were talking to Preston, and I remember him saying, he said, listen, right now, he's like, our demand far exceeds our supply. Interesting bourbon note. He did say, think about like a 20-year bourbon. We had to estimate this year's forecast 2 decades ago. So he's like, our supply is what it is, and our demand is exceeding it. So I don't need to be promoting the brand really. And he said, my family and I are comfortable enough. Like we don't need this to be a cash grab either. So if we can do some good in the world, then we would love to work with you guys. And that's where we were able to then like really start to like push try to stretch this brand and show that we can stay true to our purpose. And so we had some conversations with Preston and said, well, what if we tied it all back to the trades? Like the reality is your bourbon is coveted. It's very expensive. Our boots are very expensive. These 1,000-mile boots are over $400. We said, but the reality is it's carpenters that are and coopers that are making these barrels, and it's farmers that are growing the corn for the bourbon, and it's people in the warehouses moving the barrels, filling the barrels, emptying the barrels. So we kind of use that insight of everybody has a connection to the trades. Even if you're buying premium bourbons and premium boots, those things were made possible by people in the trades. So we tried to make that connection here. And again, we did a limited edition Old Rip Van Winkle distillery boot. There's actually bourbon barrel wood from their 15-year bourbon in the heel of the boot that we had a local carpenter tear down all these barrels and turn into heel pieces. We had a heel maker on the East Coast that turned them into heel pieces, and then we shipped them to Arkansas to have the shoes made. So again, skilled trades people putting this all together. So we did a limited edition boot, and once again, it was 100% of the revenue went back to the Micro Works Foundation to support more people that do this work. But we really did the effort to showcase like how awesome trade jobs can be, to again try to inspire more people to think about careers in this space. So this is a little bit of a promo video that just gives the background of why we did it and what we actually did.
For over 135 years, Wolverine has supported the soul of the American worker. We don't have mascots or contrived experiments to showcase the quality goods we make. Instead, we celebrate the everyday heroes that forge their own path. Like when the men and women of the Kentucky bourbon community faced an overwhelming demand for their fine crafted bourbon. Farmers, coopers, mill workers, distillers, some making bourbon for more than 3 generations, had to rise to the challenge without compromising quality or the family recipe. When the distillers needed more of that high-quality corn, the farmers created their own co-op. More corn meant more white dog, so the coopers built the biggest cooperage in Kentucky to meet demand for more charred barrels. More barrels meant more storage and a new stack house as good as the ones built a century ago. These men and women stop at nothing to build the future they want. Wolverine will be right there beside them, like we have been, for the next 135. We're not good because we're old. We're old because we stayed good.
That's terrific. And who?
So, you know, once again, I think like, ooh, if I love bourbon, I'd love to work in the industry. Like I think of marketing jobs, right? But the reality is most of the jobs in the bourbon industry are not in an office. So just another way I think to showcase that like you can be part of these industries and things that you love. And you can do it in a way where you don't have to be sitting in front of a desk. You can be out, you know, creating all of the pieces and parts that lead to those really fine bourbons.
So we've got 2 minutes left. Thank you for sharing these wonderful stories. It's really been enlightening. Are there any new products or new technology, you know, wooden heels and all this interesting stuff going on? Any new products you want to share? I know there was kind of a pivot to a woman's wear line or women's boot. So I don't know, maybe you want to share that.
Yeah, I mean, as a testament, I think, to the partnerships, we are like, you're going to see like a round 2 of a Metallica Scholars initiative coming up later this year, another round 2 of Old Rip Van Winkle coming up this year, and a few other partners that we're going to have the privilege to work with. But then again, too, to test brand stretch, and I don't know if we'll have time for that video. It's number 10, but we're launching some women's seasonal and rain boots. And again, it was a test to say, hey, can we still keep it connected to the Wolverine brand? So the folks that we're talking to and showcasing in these new boots, one particular, she owns a jewelry company in Montana called Ruby and Revolver. Her dad was a welder. Now she's a metal worker. She makes her own jewelry. She's got an amazing sense of style too, because just the space that she's working in. And she lives out in, you know, rural Montana. So once again, I think we're kind of showing that we can continue to talk about careers in the trades, but we can even do it in more of a lifestyle, sometimes fashion oriented space. And if we stay true to ourselves, that's really how we can differentiate ourselves from the competitive set that already exists in this market. So this is just a quick snippet of a story of Ruby and Revolver and the owner.
What I love about Ruby and Revolver and having my own business is the flexibility, being able to take a break mid-afternoon and go for a hike, being able to take my work to other locations and still be able to do the work I do is pretty amazing.
So a new category for us, a new consumer base, but really trying to continue to do it in a way that connects back to that sort of independence and self-reliance that these small business owners and skilled tradespeople bring into our world.
Wonderful. I mean, I think to end on a quote by you from our earlier conversation in my notes is, you know, you're moving away from what is a really great product and the features and more about why Wolverine is in this business. And I think that you're doing a great job of creating that. So
yeah, we're having fun.
To you. Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's also part of the success, I think, too. Gonna have fun with it. Hi, Ariel. How's our timing?
Oh, I mean, you are the last two speakers of the day. So if you have any last questions you'd like to ask, I say go for it.
I think we covered off on everything. I don't know, Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Amazing. Well, what an incredible company and also two incredible leaders. So thank you for taking the time and we hope we will see you back soon.
Thank you all. Thanks, Valerie.
Yeah, great.
See you.
With that, thank you all for tuning in today and watching our summit on CPG marketing. We will have another summit next week on influential on influencer marketing on Wednesday, August 18th. So be sure to tune in. We have some incredible speakers on the stage and I will see you all soon. Have a great day.